The modern world, it just works, right? We order something and boof, it shows up at our door. We flip a switch, the lights come on. But what if I told you that this entire global system, all this convenience, is built on just a handful of invisible, incredibly fragile threads? And what happens when one of them snaps? This idea from analyst Craig Tyndale, man, it really hits hard. He calls supply chains the hidden constitution of social peace. That's the core of what we're going to dig into today. We're going to walk through a scenario where this hidden constitution isn't just tested, it's completely shattered. So let's set the stage. We're going to explore this concept, this idea that our obsession with making everything efficient might have actually been our biggest mistake. We're talking about concentrated fragility. For decades, the entire global economy has been running on this just-in-time model. No extra inventory, no spare capacity, just pure, lean, cost-cutting efficiency. But in doing that, we've gotten rid of all the buffers, right? All the shock absorbers. We've created a system that is unbelievably brittle. And here is our trigger point, the Strait of Hormuz. It's this tiny, 21-mile-wide maritime choke point, but it's basically the jugular vein of the global energy economy. A full 20% of all the oil the planet burns flows through this one narrow passage. So, let's imagine it slams shut. The second that flow stops, the first domino doesn't just wobble, it shatters. And this isn't some financial crisis that starts with numbers on a screen. No, this is a physical crisis. It starts with actual ships stopping dead in the water. Instantly. Just like that. 20.9 million barrels of oil per day are stranded. Not delayed, not rerouted, they are stuck. To give you some perspective, that's more than the entire daily consumption of the United States. Gone. It is a massive, immediate physical shock to the system. And get this, it's not just oil. 20% of the entire global supply of liquefied natural gas, LNG, is also trapped. This is the fuel that runs the industrial heartlands of Asia and Europe, and it's just gone. So you might be thinking, well, what about pipelines? Aren't there workarounds? This is where the math gets absolutely brutal. Those bypass pipelines, they're like trying to empty an Olympic swimming pool with a garden hose. They can handle maybe 3 million barrels a day, tops. That leaves the world short 17.5 million barrels of oil every single day. There is simply no backup plan for a hole that big. Okay, and this is where the chain reaction really begins to spiral out of control. See, an energy shock doesn't just stay an energy shock. It very quickly starves the physical world of its most essential building blocks, and that sets off a devastating industrial cascade. Just look at this chain. It's so direct. The natural gas that's trapped in the Gulf, that's the main ingredient for nitrogen fertilizer. So no gas means no ammonia, no urea, fertilizer costs go vertical, and within a single planting season, this blockade in the ocean becomes a full-blown global food crisis. And here's one of those hidden connections we never, ever think about. A lot of the oil from the Gulf is what they call sour crude. It's full of sulfur. That sulfur gets refined out and turned into sulfuric acid, which is the essential chemical for mining copper and cobalt, the metals of our electric future. The bottom line is just brutal. No sour crude, no acid, no copper. And that copper shortage slams right into a system that's already creaking at the seams. I mean, the wait time for large power transformers, the backbone of our electric grids, is already years long. Without copper, that wait time becomes, well, indefinite. The entire energy transition, the AI data centers we're building, it all just grinds to a halt. But the cascade doesn't stop with the physical world. And here's the twist that catches most people by surprise. The crisis reaches right into the very heart of our digital lives. Yeah, we all love this myth of the weightless, wireless cloud, right? Like our data just floats up there. But the reality is that the cloud is a very heavy, very thirsty factory. It is made of metal, powered by massive amounts of electricity, and fed by a constant stream of energy that is shipped across oceans. And there is no better example of this than Taiwan, home to TSMC, the undisputed king of advanced computer chips. But just look at this vulnerability. It imports 98% of its energy. It has a shocking, and I mean shocking, 11-day reserve of LNG. And almost a third of that LNG comes from Qatar, right through the Strait of Hormuz. Now here's the kicker. These advanced chip factories, they require perfect, flawless, uninterrupted power. Even a tiny voltage sag, a flicker in the lights that lasts for milliseconds, caused by energy rationing, can ruin entire batches of microchips. We're talking vaporizing millions of dollars in an instant. The digital world requires a physical perfection that becomes totally impossible in a crisis like this. So far, we've been talking about industries, supply chains, big abstract stuff. Now we bring it all home. This is the part where the crisis stops being a headline and becomes deeply personal, threatening the stability of entire countries. This isn't the kind of inflation we argue about normally. This quote explains it perfectly. When you can't get the physical thing you need, whether it's fuel or fertilizer or food, the price just goes toward infinity. Money itself starts to become meaningless. That's hyperinflation, and it is a wrecking ball for society. And this chart, well, this shows who gets hit first and who gets hit hardest. It's the nations that are already walking a tightrope, heavily in debt, totally reliant on imports for food and fuel. Think Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan. For them, this is a perfect storm. Their currencies collapse, they can't afford to import anything, and the state itself starts to buckle. And this is what it all boils down to. It stops being about stock prices. It's about the price of bread tripling overnight. It's about the power being out for hours every single day. It's about going to the pharmacy and finding the shelves empty. This is where that hidden constitution of social peace completely unravels. Look, a crisis this deep doesn't just end. We don't just bounce back. It leaves permanent scars. It fundamentally remakes the world, forcing a complete rethinking of the global system we've known our entire lives. The whole philosophy shifts. The old religion of just-in-time efficiency, it's dead. The new doctrine is simply survival. It's about securing your own resources, controlling your own supply chains, and basically trusting no one. Efficiency becomes a luxury you can't afford. Security becomes everything. And this isn't a fast process. It's a grim, multi-year rewiring of the planet. Navies will have to permanently patrol new trade routes. Whole industries will be forced to re-engineer everything based on whatever materials they can get their hands on. And eventually, the open, globalized world we know hardens into fortified, competing, and armed economic blocs. So, we end up right back where we started. Our entire modern world has been this grand experiment in making everything as efficient as possible. But this whole scenario forces us to ask a terrifyingly simple question. In our relentless race to make everything faster and cheaper, did we forget to make it strong?